regular meeting of the Richmond Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sherry, our mission statement, please.
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community.
Thank you. Sherry, our roll call.
Deb?
Here.
Angela? Here. Kyle is late with notice. James?
Here.
Danielle? Here. Margaret? Here. And I'm present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Walmsley?
Yes, we have one resignation, Norma Burrow from the Food Service Department at the middle school. She will be resigning effective May 24th, tomorrow. But she will remain on as a substitute cook. She's received another job in a different area, not in education, so she's going to try that out, but she doesn't want to burn any bridges with us, so she wants to stay on as a sub, and if that doesn't work, she'll want to come back. So she's an excellent employee, and we're sorry to see her go. New hires, we have Kyria Abdullah Hakim. Did I pronounce it right? Close. I apologize. She will be hired as a special education paraprofessional. So she's here with us tonight, so the board could meet her. So welcome. Want to say anything?
Well, I'm a retired teacher and decided to come back into education. I did special ed for several years with moderately cognitively impaired children, international teaching as well. So I'm glad to be here.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
We had one correction in the minutes, which in your packet has been corrected, so I thank you for bringing that to my attention, Ms. Michon. And other than that, that's it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session for a student discipline hearing.
Pursuant to Section 8B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act and upon the request of the student's parent and/or guardian, I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of conducting a hearing to consider the discipline of a student whose identity is known as student 052322.
Do I have support?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will be stepping away to do our discipline hearing, and when we come back, we will finish our meeting.
Where are we going?
We're going to the conference.
Okay. We are returning into open session at 8:22. At this time, we have a presentation from Mr. Reinhardt regarding a proposal for an overnight trip for football camp.
Good evening. Sean Misko is sick tonight, so he asked me to read this message to you. Good evening, Board of Education members. On behalf of the Richmond football program, I'm requesting the opportunity to take our varsity program to an overnight camp on the dates of July 25th through July 28th. The purpose of this camp will be twofold. It will serve as an opportunity to get our players a genuine bonding experience and to participate in team building activities. 3 summers ago, we were able to participate in this camp, and the coaches and I believe it played a significant role in helping to develop our team chemistry, program belief system, and allowed us to start our regular season on the right track. It is my hope that we will make this an annual experience for our program so that we may give our athletes the best chance we can to be successful. If you have any questions, please reach out to Coach Misko.
Thank you. There is in our packet all the information on the required documentation for the field trip. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Reinhardt?
You probably don't know the answer, but maybe it talks in here about the costs and that, and if there are students that couldn't afford, something about donors. So is that something that the coaches are putting together to people that are willing to help out these kids? Do you know?
I would assume so.
Okay.
I'm not positive though.
Okay.
It speaks
So
in
we are-
here about that fundraising that they're planning to do at the beginning of
but
June.
it also talked about donors, somebody
Yes.
helping. So I guess my question would be, maybe I could just email Mr. Misko, but if we have a kid that can't afford to go,
Fundraiser.
wants to go, we'll find a way to get them there, I guess is ultimately what I'm asking. And probably right.
I'll get you that answer. I'll email them and get you the, and
Okay.
give it to the board so that when they
Okay.
approve it the next time.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt.
I just want to say, they did go to this in 19.
Yes.
They went to Olivet the summer of 19, and the plan was to go forward, but then COVID hit and everything got shut down. So they've been to this football camp in a previous year. And they are covered by our insurance. We get a policy that names Olivet as part of our insurance company. We had it in 19. We're in the process of getting that documentation that they would need. Olivet requires it, so just so the board knows, they're covered under our insurance.
And they're not disappearing for 6 years, like the proposed departure.
Yeah, it says 28, did you see that? Yeah.
It says 2028
It says,
as a return
it says
date.
July 25th to July 28.
It's really just 4 days.
Yes. Yes, I will.
They better be good.
Right.
Okay, we're going to move on. Our next agenda item is the 2023 general fund budget assumptions and discussion. Mr. Walmsley.
Okay, so we have been talking quite a bit about the budget. There's really no news yet at the state level in terms of our per pupil. So I'm still recommending the board, nothing changes with enrollment. The per pupil allocation, at the last board, we moved up to 300 since that was the minimum number of, that was being offered by the Senate and the House. So let me just pull this up, so forgive me. Okay, so we have general fund. So the first thing I want to talk about is pay to participate. When the board, last year, we reduced pay to participate to $100 one time. If you played more than one sport, you didn't have to pay it. We budgeted $30,000. It was our best guess of what we believe we would take in. Mr. Reinhardt, in your form, has filled out this form in terms of how many students were officially on the roster, how many students paid, how many students did not pay, and how many students did not have to pay because they played a second or third sport in some fashion. When you look at the total bottom there, we had 18 students of our technically 662 student athletes. Many of those 304 were multi-sport athletes that were hardship cases that did not pay, and that's done through Mr. Reinhardt's office and the principal in terms of identifying and trying to either get something from the family to help offset or help them volunteer to help. But so in a nutshell, we collected a little over almost $34,000 in pay to participate. We budgeted $30,000, so we collected a little more revenue than what we anticipated. So the question that I'm going to pose to the board is, do we want to continue this practice of it's $100 per sport, and you can play as many sports as you want? I can tell you, I've had conversations with Mr. Reinhardt with the athletic boosters. They are struggling with volunteers, and part of that pay to participate for some families at a higher rate allowed them to work it off and actually not have to pay anything or a reduced rate. Paying one time, it's winter sports, I think, was a struggle. Many of the boosters were there multiple times. They would like to see it go at least, I don't want to speak for them because I know they said they were coming back here, or may come to the board, but this change, they feel, has reduced their volunteers. That's a separate conversation than a budgetary conversation, though the two impact each other. So going forward, the question is, do we want to continue with this reduced rate? At one point in previous budget conversations, we talked about eliminating pay to participate completely. If we do that, that's a $30,000 loss in revenue. That, or we can keep this and do it a year or two, or we could go back and go to the original, which was, I believe, 150 and 135, 150 for high school and 135 for middle school.
Well, everyone knows who sat at this table with me what my thoughts are. Jim, I am a proponent to eliminate pay to play. So I would like to keep what we did this year, keep it for next year. With the
I
hope-
agree.
Still the
I'm just
hope
gonna say, I
that
would
we
agree
can
with-
eliminate it at some point.
I'd agree with Hunter.
I do too.
That's the direction of the budget that we'll keep.
I'm concerned about the volunteers.
Okay.
I think that's a piece we have to talk about, but can we?
Yeah, because I do know that the boosters, I told them if they needed help. I helped, I think, maybe once or twice when I could. But they were hurting. And like you said, Brian, you know. And I'm sure Mr. Reinhardt can agree. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, yeah, when it was what it was, you could work it off, which, like you said, does help parents because they'll pay it and then they know they can get it back. I think not offering the choice to be able to work it off hinders people from volunteering. They need a reason. They either need to be asked or they need an incentive. Unfortunately, not everybody's just ready to come out and help.
I just want to clarify, on the volunteers, we really have two groups. We have what we've identified as these are the essential volunteer positions we need to run our sport. Chain gang, clock, ticket gate. They have a set that that we were in the past paying $15. If you volunteered, you got your $15 back, and you, at the end of the season, we issued a check back. And then the boosters have a whole other set of volunteers that they paid, I believe, Chris, it's $15 per volunteer still this year, that they paid out of their own funds that they raised. So there were two pots of money, if you will, that someone could get a refund check for. So from the district, we paid up to what their pay to participate fee was, and from the booster, they probably could earn more than that because they weren't tied to the pay to participate. So they still have been trying to do that pay, as you said, share with the volunteer. They're just not getting the numbers.
So that has nothing to do with our piece, the booster piece. When they work, where do they get $15?
But if I'm a parent and I paid $150,
Okay.
and I worked for the booster
Got it.
10 times,
Got it.
I'm getting my $150 back, but I'm getting it from the booster, not the
Correct.
district.
Okay, got it.
If I worked in one of those ares that Chris has identified with each sport, like clock operator, so
Right.
I'm getting my check. So they may, and boosters have a huge wealth of opportunities that they can volunteer. And I think a lot of parents, and some volunteered and they paid their money for this student. Like I could volunteer for student A and I want my refund to go back to student A, but I'm just volunteering.
But isn't the other part, which I don't think is a board's deal, but maybe they have to look at how they run the building different too, that it doesn't just have to be athletic boosters people. There are other people that can step in and volunteer and use it.
We did have a conversation, and I shared with them similar, I don't know why this is clicking back and forth, so I apologize. Similar to what we did with Rotary this past year with Red Barn, is if your group signed up to volunteer, they wrote you a check for any group. It could have been
Right.
a tennis club, it could have been from a National Honor Society, and so forth.
But
We
that's
did have a
not-
conversation.
That's not for the board to decide, is what I'm
No,
trying to say.
that would be an internal, how they.
For them to figure it out.
Yeah.
So people who did like the chains or the time clock, did they get paid this year?
This year, we did not issue any refund checks for any of the district-required volunteers. And there were some that, Joanne was at quite a few of them because they didn't have someone to do whatever gate or tickets. There were some that last minute, we were trying to find, we struggled too, Mr. Reinhardt struggled probably mostly, and Joanne, trying to find volunteers to even just cover ours. Some of the events, there are people who just love doing that. Like, I don't think it's a hard thing to find a chain gang because people like being on the sidelines in there. But sitting at a ticket booth for a basketball game that may not be a well-attended, you might struggle finding someone. And so, but you are right, we just did not pay any refunds from our funds.
With us increasing our athletics budget, if we go through that, is there any way we could make the essential ones maybe some kind of like paid position rather than based in volunteering? Or add it on to, you know, maybe even a teacher or Schedule B type situation? Like you would get an extra if you volunteered to be the chain gang all season or something along those lines?
We'd have to explore that and have time, because I'd have to look at where were our vacancies this year, and how many do we actually have that we struggled filling, and then we'd have to do a line item for a payroll. Okay, I mean, payroll to pay the person, which would be the FICA retirement. We'd have to,
Right.
Every dollar we would pay out would have to be, you know, we have to pay FICA retirement on it. Right now, that's 51 cents on every dollar.
Okay.
so where they paid their fee and we reimbursed them $15 for every of their fee, if we're paying someone now, we're paying them $15, we're actually paying them $22.50 about our total cost.
Okay.
Is there a way, if they make a team, that you can, as part of being on the team, you've got to give 5 volunteer hours or whatever number?
I did share with Mr. Reinhardt, I remember my own son going through Lance Cruz and another district, sorry, and we were told when we went to the parent meeting, everybody's got to commit to giving 5, and they signed them up right then and there during the parent meeting, so you were committed. We've talked about next year doing our district like fall meeting, and then from that, they break out into all the fall sports, so it's all in one night, with the idea of trying to fill those vacancies, because both sides, boosters and school, are struggling for volunteers. And it's not just athletics. I mean, if you run the PTO groups, now some events are a little different than others, but they struggle for getting volunteers to help with activities there. And you know, you can bring in the band boosters. I'm sure they have a core group of parents that pretty much are doing everything.
Right.
So.
Okay, so are we...
So we have a couple options, or things we could look at if we want to look at the parent piece or not.
From
Yes.
a volunteer?
Yes.
I'm going to continue working with the boosters to try to have them, try to think outside the box to get other groups that we can tap into. We've had a conversation previous about other groups using our facilities, such as TAFL using the concession stands. Well, that would be a way that they could earn dollars for their program. If they volunteered, if they're willing. I can't, obviously they're their own 501c organization, you know, unless we're willing to pull back their use of the facilities to create some guidance that they have to follow. I don't want to get in a adversarial attempt really. I'm trying to work for a solution here, but there's options out there. I know, again, I spoke about the Rotary Red Barn. It was very successful for us, and a lot of groups that normally didn't volunteer were able to volunteer, and they got checks written to their groups.
But again, that's not our responsibility for those groups to figure out how to use the athletic boosters
That's
building.
kind of what I'm thinking.
It's not.
You're right. From what the boosters raise, theirs is not directly to the district, but where it impacts us would be is if they don't have volunteers, we aren't running concessions because they typically run them. That, if they don't have volunteers to run them. But you're right, it doesn't. I would, you know, kind of what you said, Kyle, on getting those parents to sign up, I'd want to make sure we cover our sports first to run the program, you know, clock, et cetera, gate. And then go expand from there, so.
But I think we said we were good with keeping it. Was there a majority that said that?
I believe so. Is there a majority that we would keep it the way it was this year?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so we'll stay with that.
And there's Mr. Ramsey, there's no way to separate the payment if it were to be, I like the idea of a school employee, you know, looking to supplement.
Yeah.
There's no way to separate it so that the school, they're not being paid through the state of Michigan and contributing into the pension fund. There's no way to do it through another.
No.
Well, we've ran into issues with this with other stuff too, I know.
I don't see if they're a school employee and we're issuing them a check.
Right.
again, I don't even know if we could do this, could it be an EduStaff employee? They'd have to sign up as EduStaff, and I don't know how many staff members. There's a lot of hurdles to become an EduStaff employee, I'll be honest with you.
What if we fire the employee before the game? Hire them back.
Do you know what the paperwork would be?
Well, you'd have a lot of due process hearings.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Okay, the second item, as I go down the list, we're still working on trap, art, band, choir, and robotics budget, and some of it just trying to find timing to sit down with them to make sure they understand. But what I did give you, and I put it in front of your table or your seat, is the current 5 years of what we've done for band, music, choir, art. So it goes from the most current year, which is in green, to 5 years ago, 17 and 18. So I'll just look at the top line. So at elementary school, in art, in 2017-18, the original budget was $700, the final budget was $700, and they actually spent $700. As you go across, the current budget in 21-22 is $1,000. That was the original budget. When we amended that, we increased it to $2,500 already this year. We don't have what they are currently, the final expenditures, because things are still getting processed. But you can see the progression that we have increased. Music, we started with the original budget of $500, $250, $250, $250. Music supplies this year, we amended the budget in January, February, went to $1,750. So as they've needed things, we have amended the budget. So I wanted to at least give you this snapshot. When you go to the second row, it's the middle school. You'll see art was at one point $1,200. They only spent, our final budget was $750. They only spent $735 in that year. Fast forward to this year. Original budget this year was $1,000. At the amendment, we increased it to $2,500. Part of that was to cover the cost for the clay for the kiln that was put in there, so we are addressing it. When you look at band, Molly's very good about spending every dollar and dime of band. I think if anything, if you want to allocate supplies, my recommendation was we start allocating a line item for replacement instruments as a long-term rather than if we're going to go down that road. But you can see band was typically $1,000. This year, we increased it to $1,975 from its $1,225 at the beginning of the year, last June. We also increased choir supplies this year at the amendment to address, expenses or things that they needed to run their program. So I can tell you in these areas, unless I'm losing my mind, I don't ever remember saying, no, you can't have something. If you need something, we found a way to get it for them, and we've increased them. When you look at high school, we just added the AP Art last year. We put it in the final amendment last year, though they didn't spend anything, so she must have used her internal accounts or her other art account. This year, again, we kept the original 2,000, the amendment in January, February was 2,000. The art supply budget, we increased from 2,000 to 4,000 back in January, February. You can see band supplies, we've increased from 1,500 to 2,500. And choir supplies, we've already increased from 1,000 to 2,000. So the intent is that final budget amount, barring they need more than that, becomes the starting budget for next year. So it just gives you a little snapshot of that. So I will get you from each of those teachers theirs, but I wanted to at least get you this, thinking that we have adjusted at least the band, art, and music programs.
Brian, when we get closer to the end, can you give us what they have spent?
Yeah, there's a report that we can run that will show what the original budget was, the amended, and the percentage of unspent dollars.
Because I'm just looking over what you have given us, and there's some of these that they didn't spend, the money that was there. So I would just be curious to see.
As I go down the list, there were some things that I just want to make sure I'm clear on in the general fund assumptions. We budgeted for $300 per pupil. The stuff in yellow that's in negative red is the new expense for us. The stuff in purple was stuff that we still have to make a decision. There are 2 line items that I put in there that I would, if the board is willing to commit at this point to at least start lining. Contract settlements for non-union. In your chart there, in your backup, you see the different percentages that give you a total dollar amount. That's FICA and retirement included. And then at some point, we need to have the conversation about copier replacement and setting that aside. My expectation is we're going to finish this year well to do hopefully replenish our copiers this year, because we've been trying to charge as much to grants. That luxury is going to go away pretty soon as those grant dollars are exhausted, which when you look at them, the rest of it is about $32,000 of left to allocate if you want to take those 2 assumptions that are in the purple pinkish colors. Now, between now and the next board meeting, I am very hopeful that we'll have more of a finalized budget, so we know if that $300 is a true number or if it's going to go up, to begin looking at it. I would recommend the board, if we don't have any number at that point, if we get something larger than $300, and maybe it's coming towards the end of June, you come back in August and you can adjust the other line items in August before even school starts, if you wanted to really address those areas there. Just my recommendation. I don't think you're pushed or pressured that you have to do something now. You do have those August meetings that you can adjust, and we have seen many times over that they've approved the budget in the 11th hour, and sometimes in July, and next thing you know, it's August, and we're back here and readjusting our budget, or we're doing a budget amendment. So, the only other thing that I still am waiting on, I haven't got the report yet, is the copier. There was a copier allocation number of copies and how many costs we saved and so forth, how many copies have run on each one. I will be getting that report any day. I'm waiting for it. So. Other questions, or if you want more conversation on any of these items?
Okay.
Are you good with those 2 line items that are in pink moving forward, that I can take them out of pink and put them into that yellow?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then we will move forward with that. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Our next presentation is the student and bus tracking system. And Tammy, I think we have you on this.
So as Tammy's setting up, I just want to lay the foundation. Part of what I experience, more our transportation department than anybody, but oftentimes when Susie and them are on runs because we're short drivers, the calls come to our office. The number of calls we receive from parents that one is the bus didn't arrive, and 99% of the time it is, you need to switch it over. 99% of the time, it could be a new driver who's learning to run, traffic on the road that delays the bus from getting there. It's coming, but it just isn't there. Or, I oftentimes hear, I've been waiting out here for 10 minutes and it's freezing cold and so forth. So we started a conversation, how can we get parents involved, or at least understanding where our buses are at, and to be able to get some type of notification. So we've done really the whole year looking at multiple systems. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tammy to explain that part. So, Tammy.
We started looking at our Tyler Technologies, which provides our traverse routing software. They have a program called Ride 360. So we started looking at that. When they submitted their pricing, it was a lot of upfront costs and a lot of high annual software fees. They were well above bid requirements, so we had to look further at pricing. We contacted other GPS companies. Geotab was one that we contacted. They did a demo for us, but they did not submit a price. Contacted another company that had stopped providing their own software and contracted with Geotab, so again, no price. Contacted another company. They don't provide passenger tracking, which as we've studied these programs, they have passenger tracking so that when a student is on the bus, they can swipe their card, they know who's on the bus, if that's supposed to be, if they're supposed to be on that bus, and if they're getting off the bus, they swipe it again and it says, yes, this is where they're supposed to get off. So it's a nice feature to have, and that company didn't have it, so they declined to submit pricing. We went to another company called Synovia Cal Amp, which is, they provided the demo, we liked the software, asked them for pricing, came in much better. Their pricing is actually, there's nothing up front. They're giving us a 5-year contract, and in that it's $51 per bus per month. For us, our fleet is small enough that we would just pay the minimum, which is $750 a month. So instead of upfront costs and $17,000 a year, we have no upfront costs and $9,000 per year for 5 years. So it's a much better deal for us.
It's probably 1/10 of what some of the other programs cost on looking at the system.
So we also asked them for some references for some of the schools that are using the software in the state of Michigan. We contacted 6 schools. One is just rolling it out now. They looked into it and chose that software, so they weren't able to answer a lot of our questions other than to say they liked that software the best and they liked the pricing. Others, that have been using it for a few years, all like the company, they like the support they get from the company. They would not want to operate, now that they have it, they don't want to operate without it. It was one of those things where you just didn't know what you were getting, and now that you have it, it's like, this is really good. The parents really love the GPS software, which is called Here Comes the Bus. They receive it very well. They offer lots of support and training, both to our staff and to parents to help them use the program. And overall, it reduced a lot of those phone calls where people were wondering, where's the bus? So we brought a little video with us to show you that kind of summarizes why one district did this.
A lot of times people are not upset, parents and students are not upset that the bus is late, it's just that they didn't know. Now with that right there in the palm of their hand, with the Here Comes the Bus app, they know. Parent response to CalAmp and Here Comes the Bus app has been overwhelmingly positive. We did a small software rollout last year, in the spring, and within a matter of months, there were over 11,000, 12,000 account holders that had already signed up.
I can't imagine my life without the Here Comes the Bus app. It is a lifeline, just like my mobile banking app. I use it every single day.
We always talk about Here Comes the Bus for the morning, but it's actually beneficial in the afternoon as well, because you have parents that may be getting off at a certain time. They know what time the bus normally arrives. So if they know the bus is left the school 5 minutes later, they know that they have that extra 5 minutes to arrive to pick up their child. It's beneficial in the morning and afternoon.
The phone calls in my office regarding buses late, claiming buses didn't show up, things like that, drastically reduced. The only calls I would get were parents that didn't have the Here Comes the Bus app, at which point myself or my office assistant would inform them about the app, and they would be very excited to hear about it and immediately sign up.
So our primary goal is safety. Safety is the most important thing that we do, that we look for every day. From the fleet maintenance side, even we have used the software to help us do our jobs, so we're continually every day learning more and more ways to be able to use the software to make us more efficient.
It is a software that you can have on your phone, you can have on your desktop computer. It's very available to people as an app. And Susie Fulcom from the Bus Garage and Lori Wagner are here to talk more about, after we looked at Here Comes the Bus, what other things and features you might be interested in using. Hand over to them.
Our main benefit, obviously, is for the parents. So the late buses or if a bus breaks down, we can send out a message, because we've had that happen where we've had to have another bus brought out, switch kids. So that is a big feature, because calls come in constantly, buses in here. We can do bus maintenance. The inspection sheets can be done all through the tablets too. They do have the time clock, software, but we already have that set up, so that's probably a feature we wouldn't use. The GPS system would definitely be beneficial for our substitute drivers when we get some, because they would have given them turn by turn instead of having to hold that route sheet and, you know, looking for addresses. So that would be very helpful. And another feature would be great is if we had to cancel a bus last minute, you know, reroute kids. We've done that, reassign them onto other buses. If we're down a driver and we have no substitutes, we can send out that mass text to parents, let them know their kids will be on whatever bus, you know, we reroute them. And there's many other features I know that we didn't even touch that would be offered, but the inspection sheets, the work order sheets would be great. Drivers can, when they get back to the yard, if they have a headlight out or they have an engine light on or anything, they can put right in the tablet and it goes right to the mechanics. So instead of filling out the blue sheets like we do now and piling them on their desk, it'll be alerted and they can just open it right up on their, you know, tablet or computer desk. And that's about it. The main thing is for the parents, so they can track the bus, because we get so many calls, the bus never came, the bus was early, the bus was late. And I can go on and monitor and see when that bus was there and say, the bus was there at this time, you know, because we get a lot of, no, the bus was never, you know, they didn't come at that time, and because we confirm with the drivers what time they show up. And another feature is making sure they're following the routes the way they're supposed to. We can track and see that they're running the routes, the order, you know, that we have printed out, because that's a big thing too, because that can alter the times for pick up and drop off.
So the routing system, it doesn't show the parent, here's where the bus is on the map. The parent decides the zone that they want. So basically, if my bus stop is here, I can make the circle on the app as big as I want it or as low. As soon as the bus hits that range, it will notify the parent that the bus is in that range with an estimated time of arrival.
They'll ping it.
It will ping that says your bus is here or and so forth. The safety part is, the students would be issued a badge, just like they are now, middle school, high school, elementary will have a badge that's attached to their, they get on the bus, they swipe the badge, it gives us an inventory of who actually got on that bus. Heaven forbid something ever happened, we have the most accurate list of who is on that bus to notify parents. And we've had experiences like that in the past that we've had to deal with, and so it can be a check, you know, even though the bus driver still has to go down the bus and check to make sure the bus is empty, but as students get off, they can sign off on the bus and so forth. So as a parent, you know your child made it to school or made it home, especially those parents that are aren't there when their child gets home. It's a check that did my child get off the bus?
Right.
Yes.
Or kids that are supposed to get on the bus didn't get on the bus, they'll get the alert, they didn't board at the school. We've had that.
There's many times that
Yes.
we've had where schedules change,
Yes.
everybody's told, and the student just forgets and
Right.
walks home or gets on a bus and it's
Or
supposed to
stays in
be.
childcare and
So-
not supposed to.
Right.
That would, they would be able to monitor that.
So our current process, that call comes to our office, we're on the walkie-talkie trying to find the student. Just had it last week, I think we were trying to locate it. But this would actually narrow down where that student is and whether they actually got on the bus. So it's a great communication tool, I believe, for parents and a peace of mind tool. Yet on all the features for us as a district, the safety checks and the maintenance and work orders to be able to electronically make that is going to help us tremendously. So.
And Susie did print a packet for you, so it shows, so you see the screen that the drivers can see, you see the little units to swipe on that the kids can have, so there's lots of information.
And if they're not supposed to be on the assigned bus.
That's right.
Yes, because we've had that, bus hopping and trying to kids, oh, I'm riding home with so-and-so, oh, no. And especially for substitutes.
Right.
They don't know their faces, when they're getting on, it'll say, whether they're on that bus.
What if a child forgets their key tag?
We can manually punch them in the
Okay.
set. So even, you know, we have to get their, it would be just their student IDs, so even if the sub said, okay, what's your name, punches it in, it'll still tell them whether
Yes
yes
or no.
or no.
Will it show a
Right.
picture at all?
I don't remember.
This
if
one
they-
does not do the picture. This one does
Okay.
not.
I think it just, yeah.
Just thinking a kid could tell you.
What about the replacement costs of badges for children like me who would lose that badge frequently? What would that cost now?
That was in there.
The badges run, I'm not going to give you a quote because I can't remember off the top of my head. They're not cheap, but they're not real expensive because of the programming that's in that badge.
Right.
What I did realize is we do not currently, or did find out recently, is we don't have a camera system in each of the buildings right now to print badges. I guess never really pushed or looked into it. I thought we always did. So that's something that we will be doing because especially for new students that take this out of the mix, new students that come after the year, unless they're there for makeup pictures, they never get a badge with their picture on it, and so forth. So this will be part of that badge system that we're going to be putting in each building to be able to redo the badge.
But this badge would have GPS tracking, or no, just
No,
a number?
it's a number in your badge that there's a code on the back that you match up with the little bit, it's a little almost like we do with the card readers for the doors. It's a little black box that it's mounted on the bus. They come up and they swipe the badge on it.
Swipe it, yeah. Swipe on, swipe off.
What we are exploring is, particularly with the older kids, currently when we using these same badges for access to the building. So for instance, right now, the custodian goes in and unlocks all the doors at 7:15 or whatever in the morning, and then when the bell rings, we go back and lock them in. There is a security window that we need to tighten up, and we try the best we can, but if something happens and it gets delayed, with our new system using these badges, we theoretically, and that's what we're exploring, keep the doors locked, and we can program the high school kids, you have access from this time to this time in the building to get in. Otherwise, you got to buzz in, and never unlock the doors for those dismissal and entrance time, or at least entrance time.
And then they could go in any door, not just the front door, or how would it make it
Theoretically,
easier?
we can
Any door
do
with a stamp?
multiple. We can do any door. We can program only specific doors you can go into.
Help with tardies.
And you can program that, again, this is where we're exploring. We're not, my hope is that we'll be there in the fall, but at least we're going to use the same badge that can use for both systems. Multifunction. And they're really easy to turn off. I mean, if you have a student that is suspended, you just deactivate their badge. You'd have to.
Does this still allow, like you said, for example, the kids bus hopping, or I'm going home with a friend? How does that work to allow?
If they're assigned, like we do have kids that are assigned to like 2 buses, or either babysitting or parents, yeah, we can link them.
But what if it's just for a day?
We don't allow that.
Oh, not at all?
We stopped that a few years ago.
Okay.
Because buses are so full, and for insurance purposes, covering, yes.
Sure.
They have to ride their assigned bus.
Gotcha.
So,
But we do have parents like that on
We
a
have
schedule.
people,
Like
yes.
I'm at mom's house today, dad's house
Yeah.
here,
Right,
grandma's
right,
house here.
right.
From that, but those singletons, I don't know how many of those we actually get
Not really.
questions, to be honest with you.
they're kind of used to it now. I mean, the first couple
Right.
years were rough. Parents said, come on, they want to go to so-and-so's house.
Right.
Right, but
Exactly.
those have kind of, they know we don't, or you know what I mean? So they
Right,
don't,
right.
they stop asking.
What is nice about our district is the bus drivers know the kids. They
Yes.
know those faces of the kids that get on and off their
Right.
buses. And so if someone's not on the right bus, there's a conversation, they know it. Where we don't have, as Susie said, it's when we have sub-bus drivers. They
Yes.
don't necessarily know the kids' faces, or another bus driver's driving a different run.
Yes, you've done that, covering like an
Yeah.
emergency, yeah.
Yes.
So that will help tremendously.
Well, that's huge, especially with new learners.
Yes.
Yes.
Especially with your little
Yeah,
ones.
for sure.
Especially if you have a little one who gets on the bus and you're trying to get a name and they don't say anything, or a number, they don't know their address, and you're just trying to figure out who they are,
Backpack, see if
which
there's something
happens.
in their backpack or
Yeah.
a school folder. Okay, that's right, you know. But usually if we can't find a name, then we just call the school and say.
Right.
And for me, the benefit I see for a parent is I have been on the receiving end of calls of that frantic parent whose child isn't home and they don't know where it is. And though I've said we'll find them, we'll locate them, there is that time that as a parent, at least now if you can see your child got on, and if you set the zone, you can set it from the time they got on the bus to school, or within 2 blocks of the house, whatever you want personally. And so I think it's a great communication tool that for parents that we will be rolling out next year. So I'm very excited about this. And it's been a long process looking at multiple systems and costs and trying to figure out the biggest. A lot of them have a lot of bells and whistles that we will never touch in a district. So this is one
Sometimes
that.
the GPS is meant more for over-the-road trucking
Right.
instead of buses.
Yeah, like
We're really
we
looking
know our
for that
routes,
passenger, bus passenger.
Yes, and for parents. That's our main two.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much, both of you.
All right, thank you. That's the simplest.
Our next item on our agenda is our bond update. Mr. Walmsley?
In your board packet, there's basically 4 items that I want to talk about. One is the softball drainage system. It's been pretty impressive watching how much work goes in underground that we'll never see on these fields, but it is being installed or many parts finishing and connecting, so they've already put dirt over top of it. If you've driven behind the auditorium, you'll see that the parking lot has already been pulverized and the cement work is getting ready for the new sidewalks that have been replaced. And then ultimately the asphalt will be poured. The intent of that is still to be finished by the end of the school, so that becomes the summer use parking lot when we start tearing up the student parking lot and the road that runs between the high school and the football field. Just as a reminder, the second sale of the bond for Series 2, I should say, Series 2 bond, is scheduled for June 2nd. Just in the previous, when you authorize this, you authorize me to accept the winning bid on that day. So there'll be a conference call that's arranged by our district attorney, Matt Heiser, to review the bids and be able to accept it. At the June 13th meeting will be the debt fund cash flow and all that with the millage allocation will be prepared that day based on the bids that come in and using it to prepare the L4029, the tax millage rate that will be levied over the summer will all come to you at the June 13th, which is the next board meeting. So, and the last thing I have is we are moving up one summer. After talking with AUK for many conversations, the bus lane that will be in front of the middle school will be moved up to this summer rather than next summer. So when students return in the fall, there will be 3 lanes of road. You'll have a setback. The buses will pull off to still allow transport or cars to go through in front of the middle school. There'll be a new sidewalk that's done in there, but it's an indent. Sadly, though, some of those trees along the front will be removed because that's where the bus lane will be. But we are moving that up one summer from the summer 23 to this year. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, at this time we have public comments. Since the last board meeting, I received 1 email from the public regarding our 4th and 5th grade end of the year activities. I know it was also addressed to Mr. Walmsley, and I know it was addressed. Any member of the public may address the board at this time. Please sign in and state your name. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Are there any public comments? Okay. Being no public comments, we will move on to the superintendent and legislative update.
Okay. Last week was the consensus revenue sharing or consensus revenue estimating conference, which determines what numbers the state will use for their final budget. It's often done twice a year. There are 2 main ones, once in January, and then the May one is what sets the budget. This year, the consensus revenue estimating, there's a lot more money in the general fund after all the expenses have been paid for this year as well as the expenses they planned for next year, to the point that the school aid fund is expected to have $5 billion left on the balance sheet at the end of this fiscal period, which means before they even attack the 22-23 revenues that are added, there's $5 billion to spend. So the dollars are there to continue supporting schools and so forth. It's just whether the legislators and governor choose to. Last week, shortly around the consensus, or right before, the House Bill 4568 was introduced. It provided a $2 billion tax cut that would grow to $2.6 billion in 2 years. The proposal was put together by the legislative leadership, but did not include the governor's office in that process. According to the Senate Fiscal Agency, House Bill 4568 would cut the revenue by our state by, again, $2 billion in 22-23 and another $2.6 billion the following year. This would see a reduction in the school aid fund of more than $217 million projected in the first year and $242 million in the second year, which would continue to grow. The school aid fund is relies on taxes, as you know, and when there's a tax reduction, it will cause an impact to the school aid fund. Multiple bills were introduced in the Senate or approved by the Senate. Some of these we've talked about before, which were introduced in the House. House Bills 4037 and 4038 and 4535, which would remove ACT work keys assessment. It's been approved by the Senate and the House. It gives a student an option. I don't know necessarily if logistically how this would work, but if a student wants to, the district shall be required to give it. So theoretically, if you have one student that wants to, you're going to have to coordinate testing for that one student who wants the work keys assessment. Again, it'd be interesting how the implementation is going to fare out. House Bill 5686, which I am 100% in favor of, says any requirements to the pupil accounting manual and auditing manuals cannot be implemented in the same year. They must be implemented the following year. Oftentimes, we're starting school, and they're already making changes to pupil accounting. We're backtracking. Unless, the only exception would be unless the legislators make it law, then it starts when the law starts. House Bill 4810 and 4811 removes the essay portion on the SAT test and removes the Michigan merit scores from being printed on a student transcript. Again, it's passed the House and the Senate. House Bill 5190, which is now passed the Senate, requires 1/2 credit of financial literacy to graduate. I don't think there's any, and it requires the Michigan Department of Education to develop the curriculum for those. There's really not a lot of opposition to the concept behind it. They just want the local schools to be able to figure out how they do it in their curriculum. Much like we did with the visual and performing arts, we kind of define what courses being qualified or make sure we have the content. So just interesting. House Bill 4375 and 5536 adjusts the time period for retirees to come back and substitute from a year. This one goes down to 9 months, so they don't have a whole year. They have to wait. It's a 9 month. There's a lot of bills out there that we're just watching, because I think this is their solution to the teacher shortage, is hire people back who retired from the profession, which isn't a bad, because you bring the knowledge base back, but oftentimes people retire for a reason. So maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. The interesting on this one is this bill would not, their districts would not be required to pay the UAAL costs of these retirees. So basically, 43.28% is our retirement. The state caps it at, I don't know the number, but I'm going to say 25 off the top of my head. The difference, we have to pay the state, and the state turns around and gives us that money to pay back. So that's what the UAAL costs are. So last week, the U.S. Department of Education released a statement regarding the extension of the Esser funding to allow, because of shortages in infrastructure and labor shortages and districts being able to expend their funds, to be, if projects are signed and started by September 30th of 2024, you would actually have until April of 2026 to spend those. I don't believe we're going to have a problem with it, because I think the way our plan is, our funds are going to be pretty much exhausted at the end of this cycle, and so forth. A couple updates from in-district. Food Service Director, Mrs. Guinea, reports that, I'll ask a question. How many fruits and vegetables do you think fresh Michigan-grown fruits and vegetables have we served to students this year? You want to take a guess?
10,000.
75,000.
Go in the middle. 42,432. fresh Michigan-grown fruits and vegetables were sold, or provided to our students, not sold, provided to our students this year, which is pretty remarkable for a district our size, getting that healthy fruits and vegetables from supporting our farmers, et cetera. At Lee Elementary School, third graders, if you saw on Facebook, they were partnering with the Richmond Police Department, kind of giving them a send-off, getting them ready to go to middle school. This coming Friday is their PBIS assembly around compassion, which is one of their life skills that they've been working on. And all 3 buildings are finishing up NWA testing, or should be done. A couple things just for the listening audience. I know it will be starting to be really publicized and promoted by the buildings if they have not, but 3-year-old preschool graduation ceremony is on Thursday, June 9th at 9:30 a.m., in the high school auditorium. 4-year-old is on the same day, the 9th, at 1 p.m. in the auditorium. Kindergarten awards and promotions is on June 8th at 1:30 in the elementary cafeteria. First grade is on June 13th at 10:30. Second grade is on June 14th at 10:30, and third grade is on June 15th at 10:30. At the middle school, one of the big events they're preparing for is this Friday, is their 5K run, which they raise quite a bit of money for veterans and so forth, and it's a way of getting all the students involved and recognizing the importance of Memorial Day this coming Monday. The middle school band concert was really excellent and had a great turnout last week. 4th grade awards and 5th grade awards are on June 13th at 9 and 9:30 a.m. at the gym respectively. 6th grade and 7th grade awards are on June 14th at 8 and 9:30 in the middle school gym. And 8th grade awards and promotion is on June 15th, the last day of school, at 10 a.m. So, at the high school, senior awards was last week. It was good to be back in person for the last 2 years. We've been having some combination of graduation awards. Great success. We tried a couple of different things this year. Kudos to Mr. Castle and Mrs. Borwick for what they arranged this year. I think it was nice having the seniors on stage. It gave more seats in the audience. Graduation rehearsal is tomorrow for the students at 10 a.m. at the Macomb Center. And graduation ceremony is, just a reminder, on Wednesday, May 25th at the Performing Arts Center, Macomb Community College. 9th, 10th, and 11th grade awards are on Friday, June 10th. At 9:50 is the 9th grade, at 12:35 is the 10th grade, and 1:40 is the 11th grade. Various hours throughout the day. That's all I have.
All that end of the year fun. Okay, at this time, we're going to do items of interest from the board. We'll start on this side. Sherry?
I'm all set, thank you.
Margaret?
No. Excuse me, no.
James?
Nothing.
Kyle?
I have sat at this table for the last 6 years. Unfortunately, tonight is my last meeting. I will be resigning my position. I will no longer meet the legal requirements to sit here due to the fact that I will no longer reside in the district. I would just like to thank the community for allowing me the opportunity to try and do what's best for all of our children. It has been an honor, so thank you.
Thank you. Danielle?
I helped out at field day today for the preschoolers all day. 3-year-olds in the morning, 4-year-olds in the afternoon, and I don't know how those preschool teachers do it. I'm beat. I'm barely awake here, but I had lots of fun doing that, so that was a lot of fun, but I'm excited for graduation Wednesday.
Angela?
Well, hearing the news that Kyle just announced, I would like to thank him for his service over the years and wish you good luck in your new venture, I guess. Thank you. That's it.
Yeah, let me add to that. Thank you, Kyle. You and I started out very interesting as board members, didn't quite see eye to eye, but we have come to work together very well. I have deep respect for you and the work that you've done. You always look at things, the big picture. You've given a lot of your time and effort, and you've been a tremendous asset, and I thank you as a board member being able to work with you. You will be missed at this table.
Thank you.
Kyle, I too wish to express your time spent with the board and with our community. We will miss you.
Thank you.
Okay, action items. Here we go. I need a motion for the approval of the K-12
Doesn't Kyle
science.
got to do them all?
Pardon me?
Doesn't Kyle have to do them all? Who's left?
That's how I did it when I was president.
Well,
It sure
I
was.
think, yeah, that
Absolutely.
is an unwritten rule.
It was an unwritten rule.
Do what you want.
I said yes.
whatever. I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the K-12 science curriculum and instructional materials.
Yeah, as soon as I can find it.
I gave you my binder if you want the paper copy.
Yeah, I'll read them all.
That will make it easier for me. I don't know who the first one is.
Right, be the same
A
game.
motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the K-12 science curriculum and purchase of instructional materials from Amplify Science for grades K through 8, and amount not to exceed $205,013, and McGraw-Hill Inspire Science for grades 9 through 12, amount not to exceed $51,279, for which fund is from the district's Esser 2, Esser 3, and general fund is allocated as outlined in the attached documentation.
Do I have support?
Support.
I'm going to give it to James. Any discussion? Pardon me? I know. I got it. Any discussion? Okay, this is a roll call vote. Kyle?
Aye.
James?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
Margaret?
Aye.
Sherry?
Aye.
Deb Michon, aye. Motion carries. Okay, I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the Custodial Handbook.
Motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the 2022-2023 Custodial Handbook as outlined in the attached documentation.
Do I have support? I'm sorry. Margaret, was that you? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion for the approval of a Michigan High School Athletic Association membership resolution.
A motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the Michigan High School Athletic Association membership resolution for the 2022-2023 school year as presented in the attached documentation.
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the board resolution for student 05322 discipline hearing.
I can't do that one.
Someone else should probably do that since he doesn't. Yep, right.
I was not present.
Oh, thank you. Do I have someone who would provide that motion, please?
I got it.
Okay.
I motion that following a closed session student discipline hearing, the board votes to expel student 052322 consistent with the attached resolution.
Do I have support?
Support.
Any discussion?
Just remember to ask me to abstain.
Okay. Okay, I'll need help. Do I ask?
You say all those in favor.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And abstain?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, I'm looking for a motion for the approval of server purchase.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the purchase of a network server from Anacomp TSG for an amount not to exceed $14,677. Is it 84 cents?
Yes, it is.
84 cents. The purchase is part of the REMC bid pricing, and the FY 2022 final budget will reflect an increase in ASN to account for this purchase, as outlined in the attached documentation.
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Kyle?
Aye.
Margaret?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
James?
Aye.
Sherry?
Aye.
Deb Michon, aye. Motion carries. Looking for a motion for the approval of a 5-year server upgrade lease agreement.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve a 5-year server upgrade lease agreement from Hewlett-Packard Enterprises Financial Services for an amount not to exceed $30,960 for 5 years. The FY 2022 final budget will reflect an increase in ASN to account for this lease agreement, as outlined in the attached documentation.
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Kyle?
Aye.
Margaret?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
James?
Aye.
Sherry?
Aye.
Deb Michon, aye. Motion carries. Okay, Okay, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session for purpose of negotiations.
Pursuant to Section 8C of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purposes of negotiations.
Do I have support? Thank you. Margaret, is that you?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will be going into closed session. Being no further business, we will adjourn when we return.